Have you ever stared at a name on a bank statement that didn't belong to you, yet felt its presence in your home like a ghost? The name was Marco Rossi, and it was siphoning thousands from an account I never knew my wife Sarah had. It was 2 a.m., the only light in our Chicago brownstone coming from my laptop screen, casting long shadows across the life I thought we'd built. The cursor blinked over a wire transfer to a bank in Rome, Italy, for an amount that made my stomach clench. It wasn't just the money, it was the casual intimacy of the transaction description. For the rent, my love. Can't wait to see you. My wife was asleep down the hall, her breathing even and slow, a picture of innocence. But on this screen, glowing in the dark, was the architecture of her betrayal, and I was about to pull the first brick from its foundation. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. For 10 years, Sarah was my world. We met in college, 2 kids with nothing but ambition, and built a life in Lincoln Park. I poured everything into my architecture firm, working brutal hours to give her the world, and I thought I had. She ran a small, moderately successful art gallery, a passion I'd always supported. The humiliation began subtly. It was in the way she'd angle her phone away from me, the screen dimming as I walked into the room. It was the business trips to art fairs in Miami and New York that became more frequent, her stories about them vague and peppered with details that didn't quite line up. She started talking about a new Italian artist, Marco Rossi, a supposed prodigy she was mentoring. "He's brilliant, Alex, but struggling," she'd say, her eyes shining with a light that wasn't for me anymore. The discovery was a slow, agonizing burn. A receipt for a dinner for 2 at a ridiculously expensive restaurant in South Beach, found in her travel bag from a trip I wasn't on. A late-night phone call I answered when she was in the shower, only to be met with panicked silence and then a click. Her password-protected laptop, once left open on the kitchen counter, was now always shut and locked. She grew colder, more manipulative. When I'd question her, she'd turn it on me. "Are you accusing me of something, Alex? After everything I do for us?" Her voice would be laced with such venomous disbelief that I'd find myself apologizing, feeling insane for my own suspicions. She and this Marco, this ghost, felt untouchable. She'd laugh on the phone, a light, airy sound I hadn't heard directed at me in years, and I knew she was talking to him. They were living a life funded by my sweat, and I was just the fool paying the bills. The breaking point came on our anniversary. I'd booked a table at our favorite spot on North Michigan Avenue, the place I'd proposed. She canceled an hour before, texting me, "So sorry, an investor emergency came up." Rain check. I drove past her gallery. It was dark. On a gut feeling, I drove home. Her car was gone. I sat in our living room, the anniversary gift I'd bought her sitting on the table, and I just shattered. The grief was a physical thing, a weight that crushed the air from my lungs. But as the sun rose, something else rose with it, cold, hard resolve. The architect in me, the man who designed buildings to withstand earthquakes, took over. It was time to stop grieving and start building a case. For the next 3 months, I became a ghost in my own life. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Frank, who was worth every penny. He confirmed Marco was real, living a lavish life in a Rome apartment paid for by my wife. He wasn't an artist. He was a failed model, a parasite. Sarah had opened a secret business account, funneling money from her gallery, and I would later discover forging my signature on documents to secure a business loan against our shared assets. Frank gathered it all, photos of them together in Miami, hotel folios, bank statements detailing every wire transfer. I set up a meeting with the best divorce attorney in Chicago, a shark named Miss Albright. I laid out the evidence. Her eyes widened. "This is not just infidelity, Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice a low hum. "This is fraud. We can destroy her." The trap was set. Sarah's gallery was preparing for its biggest show of the year, a major event she'd been planning for months. Her parents, our friends, prominent figures in the Chicago art scene, everyone would be there. It was her night to shine. 2 days before the event, I moved all of my money into a new account. I filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial fraud, and filed an injunction to freeze the gallery's assets and the secret bank account, effective the morning after her big show. She was served the papers an hour before the gallery doors opened. I can only imagine the panic, the cold dread that must have washed over her as she stood there in her designer dress, holding the thick manila envelope. I didn't go to the party. I was at a bar down the street with Frank. But he had a man inside, feeding us updates. Her parents, confused and worried, confronted her. She tried to play it off, but the mask was slipping. Her largest investors, who had been quietly tipped off by Ms. Albright's office about the fraudulent loan, cornered her, demanding answers. The whispers turned to a roar. She made a frantic call, her voice trembling. To Marco, I presumed, but the money was gone. The account was frozen. The lifeline was cut. She left her own party in tears, her reputation in tatters, walking out into a life that had just been systematically dismantled. The gallery folded within a week. The loan was called in, and since it was secured against our assets, the debt fell squarely on her half of the divorce settlement. Her parents, devout Catholics, were mortified by the public scandal and refused to help her. She was ruined, socially and legally. I saw her one last time, across the polished table in Miss Albright's conference room. Arrogance was gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted look. She was a stranger. She tried to speak, to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. There was nothing left to say.
8.
I signed the final papers without looking at her again. Sometimes late at night I walk through the empty rooms of this house, the silence a constant reminder of the life that was demolished. The ghost of Marco Rossi is gone, but so is the woman I once loved. And I'm left wondering if you can ever truly sweep all the ashes from a house that's been burned to the ground. End.